Hey there, Golden Bears. We're on to AMSCO Chapter 2 in the analysis. A couple of things before we dive in. One, my goal is to give you these videos in less than 10 minutes. Two, uh, my goal is again to give you some guidance and strong help on these analysis questions so that way you're less frustrated and more likely to perhaps engage in the material and not give up. And number three, my encouragement is you go back and see how my answers would have added up to what your answers look like and see if you can find a happy balance between both of those. So with that, let us dive in. Chapter 2 of AMSCO. This should be page 2 of your packet. Analysis question asks, compare and contrast the English model of colonization, that of the French and the Spanish. Well, the English had more of a long-term focus on settlement, whereas the French and Spanish were there mostly focused on money. To what extent was the defeat of the Spanish Armada a turning point in the American history? Well, with the defeat of the Spanish, it enabled the whole area to have unfiltered exploration and allow the colonization of the North to be unimpeded and to happen quickly. Explain one political and one economic cause for Jamestown and its early struggles for survival. Well, there's numerous things we'll talk about in lecture, but essentially this. Jamestown did not have the right type of people nor land for colonization, which made the leadership incredibly difficult. Economically, they struggled due to the debt that they owed to the crown. Compare and contrast Jamestown and that to the Plymouth colonies in the north. Jamestown was economically focused while Plymouth was formed for religious freedoms. Both, however, developed good relationships with the natives. It isn't until later that things began to sour. Going on to the next page, it says, compare and contrast the political development of Virginia to that of New England. Are they more similar or are they more different? Well, they were more similar because they focused on securing individual rights and providing a voice for the people. House of Burgesses, you might want to look that up at this point. Next question, explain how cultural interactions between the colonizing groups of Africans and American Indians in the colonial era impact the development of American colonial identity. Whew, that's a long question. Well, cultural interactions impact the development of the American colonial identity because of these social belief systems shaped early on and creating new social norms. Identify the major cause of the establishment of the slavery in the Western Atlantic world, and which of these was the most significant? Well, with the lack of immigrants and this cash crop that deemed it necessary to increase the need for slaves, this cash crop demand probably created the biggest desire for slaves because with large quantities of cheap labor, you have incredible profits to be made. Going on to the next page, identify the causes of the sources of discord in early New England and which ones were the most threatening and how were they handled correctly. Well, some could argue that the religious issues created the most discord, specifically the tolerance of others' belief. It was not handled orderly and instead created civil war until those with disagreements essentially secede and leave. Going on to the next page, asks to what extent did the English Civil War serve as a turning point in the colonies of America? Well, the English Civil War was a turning point for the colonies because beforehand they were, able to govern themselves because England was distracted, whereas after this war, England took on a bigger role in governing the colonies, which angered them and bothered them and really caused them to really reflect greatly. We'll talk more about that as we embark further. Compare and contrast the middle colonies and the southern colonies during the Restoration era. Well, religion played a larger role in the middle colonies as well as for fur and timber. The royal rule and cash crops played a larger role in the southern colonies as they were a larger foreign threat as the Spanish Florida was nearby. Going on to the next analysis, identify the causes and motivations of the British mercantile system. Now, if you came from Hamill's class, you probably talked at length of the mercantile system and what that meant. Here we're going to just touch briefly upon it. Well, Britain was certainly motivated by economic gain and control over their colonies and keeping its strong presence in Americas near other foreign powers. That by this competition of foreign powers was most significant in order to dominate both the new and the old world. Explain the political, economic, and cultural impact of the British mercantile system. Well, the British mercantile system impacted the colonies politically by increasing the royal presence and decreasing the amount of colonial self-government and representation. Economically, it helped the shipbuilders, but hurt other facets of businesses because it limited who they could sell and buy from. Culturally, it grew colonial resistance to the crown. To what extent did African slavery differ regionally in 18th century North America? Well, the demand for African slavery was stronger in the southern colonies than that in the northern colonies. And that should wrap it up. I'm going to leave the document on your own to do some historical analysis. We'll talk about that in class. Also, be sure that you do that map and color it as designated there for you. Okay, go Bears, and we'll see you on the next video.